Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing my participation today, and thank you to all the witnesses for being with us. I'm very sympathetic to many of the concerns you all have regarding the negative effects of the retaliatory tariffs. But I want to share similar concerns small business owners in South Florida have with these U.S. tariffs and the response from the Chinese. The Florida Keys represent the largest commercial seaport in the state of Florida and represent enormous economic value to Florida and Monroe County. Next to tourism, commercial fishing is the second largest economic engine in the Keys, valued with turnover at $900 million. $300 million of that amount is directly attributable to the harvest of spiny lobster. That was part of a letter sent to me yesterday by Captain Bill Kelly, Executive Director for the Florida Keys Commercial Fishermen's Association. One of the Florida Keys economic engines is at risk of being stalled as China begins to impose retaliatory tariffs on all seafood products imported from the United States. Mr. Chairman, I would like to submit into the record the referenced Florida Keys Fishermen's Association letter sent yesterday regarding U.S. tariffs and Chinese retaliatory actions. I would also like to submit into the record the letter I sent to the President yesterday regarding the same issue.
Without objection.
Last year's hurricane season was difficult for many communities in South Florida, especially for Florida Keys fishermen. Fishermen are still struggling with loss of income, repairs, and recovery of property, replacing expensive lobster traps. I fear the small gains made since the end of the hurricane season are in peril as China retaliates on our fishermen's exports. Shortly after the administration's tariffs under Section 301 went into effect, China retaliated with a 25% tariff on its own list of imports for American items, including Florida spiny lobsters and many of the agriculture items mentioned in the hearing. Florida Keys fishermen are worried these retaliatory tariffs will have a negative economic effect on their livelihoods and that they will never again be able to regain their market share in China even after a hypothetical successful negotiation to decrease tariffs. It's worth noting some of the fishermen in my district export up to 75% of their spiny lobsters to China. While I agree with the administration that China should be held accountable for damaging U.S. businesses with unfair trade practices, this retaliation is also a source of great harm to many of our fishermen and farmers. Instead, we should be working with our allies, Canada, the EU, and Mexico, to implement a more targeted approach that will both address China's unfair trade practices and help restrain retaliation, providing our fishermen, farmers, and workers with a level of certainty and helping our communities and your communities return to economic prosperity. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm grateful for all of the testimony we've heard here today. And I think when people think of American farmers, they think of more traditional farming like the ones that have been highlighted today. But there are a lot of other people throughout the country, fishermen and others, who are already facing the consequences of this growing trade dispute. And I just wanted to come here to add my voice to all of the voices we've heard today and to really encourage the administration to try to bring this plane in for a landing, because there are many Americans and American families, not just consumers, but people like these fishermen in the Florida Keys who are already being aggrieved, and especially at a time when my district is still trying to recover after the powerful storm, Hurricane Irma, that hit us last year. We can't take more pain at this time. So we really hope that working together, Republicans and Democrats, with the administration, with so many stakeholders from throughout the country, we can all figure this out as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman.